All right, well then. Oh boy, how are you going to intro?
How are we going to intro this? Let me think here. Do you want me to do you want to start or you want me to start? I don't care.
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Buddy Movies, the place where buddies talk about movies. It has been a long break for us. Joining me is my co-host, Anthony Watkins. Want to say hello, Anthony?
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
Man.
We're back.
After only like a 9-month break, you know.
Yes, it's been a 9-month break. We were talking about this before the show. It was November, I think, was the last time we recorded, and that was with the Christmas episodes. I think Breaking Bad was the last one we actually recorded together.
Yes, I believe so. And the last ones were released, you know, were obviously they were Christmas Day. So it's literally been just about 9 months, but a lot has happened in that time. So, you know, there was a reason we took such a long break. Well, I did this little thing called getting married. I got married June 23rd. So that was a pretty big day. A lot of preparation, several months leading up to that. So that took a lot of time, but honestly, it was worth it in the end, I think. It turned out to be a great day. Anyone who doesn't follow me on Facebook or anything, you know, Mark was one of my groomsmen. So it was a great day. We nice sunny day, a little warm, like mid 80s, but not as warm as it could have been in Missouri in the middle of June. Yeah, and we did a nice.
At your wedding.
Yeah.
At your wedding, my ego grew quite a bit just because there were, I think it was 2 or 3 times where people stopped me and they were like, "Hey, are you Mark Young? Did you do that podcast with Anthony?"
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
I didn't realize that happened.
Like 2 or 3 times. Yeah. The one person was like, "Yeah, I like you. You're really funny. You know, I like the show." So I was like, my head just like boom grew three sizes that day. It was awesome.
That's pretty cool. I'm just curious who it was. I mean, was it a girl or guy?
Well, one of them was your sister.
Okay,
your sister
Ellen
was one of them.
Yep.
Yeah. That was when at the rehearsal dinner we were sitting across from her and she was talking about the show. And then I want to say it was Barb. Was she at your wedding? Or
Toledo? Yes. Yeah. Her and Tomas. Her husband Tomas. Yep.
Yeah. Her and her husband sat behind me and Liz at the reception. So, so I was sitting down with Liz and we were just catching up because we weren't together in the wedding. And then Barb, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, are you Mark?" And yeah. So my head.
That's cool.
It felt good. I felt like YouTube famous, even though like it was people we know who.
Right.
Like
you've never met them in person before, so
exactly. So it was cool. Made me feel like we're actually doing something.
Right. Getting a little recognized, even though it's just by a couple people. That's cool. Oh, I didn't know that happened. That's yeah. I know Barb and Tomas. They've been listening for honestly like since the very beginning, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice to meet the fans and stuff. I hope I acted appropriately and didn't blow people off. It was a busy day. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was a crazy day. A lot happened. And anybody, again, who follows me on Facebook, I posted, so the wedding itself was shot in like an Office mockumentary style because as you know, I'm a big fan of The Office. Mark's a big fan. Most of my groomsmen were huge fans of The Office. So we shot it in like a mockumentary style and I edited it. It took about... Man, I was in Wyoming for like 6 weeks and I was working on it pretty much every night for 2 to 3 hours a night, working 12-hour days out there. And it took about 6 weeks to edit all that. It was a lot of footage, a lot of talking heads to go through. But I mean, I thought it turned out pretty well, honestly. I
thought it was good.
Yeah. And I created also a super fan episode, which has a bit more material, which I put on like a private link. So if you were interested in watching that, let me know. I just didn't put that as a, I didn't want to put that out there.
A little more inappropriate.
Right. It's a little more out there. I incorporated Mark.
Once the guys found out you were editing it, and I told them you were editing it, they went a little ham with the jokes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but it was worth it. I got some great footage. Oh, it was good. But and now I'm actually in the process of editing. It'll be like a 4 to 6 minute highlight reel, a more conventional wedding video, if you will, just to kind of just for people who weren't fans of The Office, didn't really get a lot of it. This way, they have something that's more more to what they're used to. So that should be done within a week or two. But yeah, well, let's see.
So that's what's been going on with us. So
right, yeah.
Shall we get into this?
Let's do it.
You want to do the movies first?
Let's start out with our current events. We have two today. We're going to discuss we have two articles to discuss.
This is kind James of our current events. Black Panther.
Let's do the Black Panther one first.
All right, cool. So we have this article on Black Panther put out by thedirect.com. I'm hoping to be able to edit it in so you guys will be able to see this article, but we'll see. Anyways, it says Marvel Studios' final film of 2022 and Phase 4 is the MCU's long-awaited sequel to the 2018 box office hit Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, starring, I meant to look these names up. So if I botch them, I'm so sorry. I think it's Letitia Wright, Denia Guerrero, and Winston Duke in Black Panther 2 will show T'Challa's family and allies struggle to defend Wakanda and chart a new path in the wake of the hero's death. This particular plot is unique in that it mirrors what the actual cast and crew went through. But here's the issue that we wanted to talk about is in the French magazine Le Film Français via Okasapi, Disney is considering canceling the Black Panther Wakanda Forever's theatrical release in France. And this is due to a French law requiring that theatrical releases wait 17 months before releasing on a subscription-based streaming platform. So what's actually happened? So what's actually going on there, I'm not going to read the whole article, but I will have it linked in the description. So what's going on is that none of Marvel's Phase 4 movies have been released on streaming services in France yet. Because they've been released in the theater, they still have to wait. It hasn't gotten past that 17-month mark yet for even the first one, because that is a year and a half of time. And Black Widow, I think, was the first one of the Phase 4, and hasn't been 17 months since it came out yet. So that's not even on the streaming service yet. So they're thinking about just skipping the theatrical release because realistically, France isn't that big of a market. And just putting it straight on the streaming service. Yeah.
I feel bad. I mean, I was unaware France even had this 17-month theatrical window, honestly. It's literally the first time I've heard of this. I don't know how I missed that.
It's interesting to me because that's completely different than the way we run things here in the States, because the studios always run themselves. Like there's laws governing this stuff, but not laws like that extreme. And that's because back in the 30s, when they started like having issues with the Hays Code and stuff, the studios got really big on regulating themselves. So whenever they felt like legislation or stuff was going to come down on them, they got ahead of it and they did something to prevent these types of laws coming in and forcing them to act in a certain way. That's how we ended up with the rating system we have now with the G, PG, PG-13, and R, because they regulate themselves. That's not something the government put on them. So I just found it interesting that France has this law in the books that's affecting the way they do their business. Because here in the States, that's an insanely long time. 17 months?
Yeah.
That's almost a year and a half. We have people are freaking out right now because Maverick Top Gun Maverick isn't streaming yet. You know, like, and it looks like that's not going to stream until it's been out since your bachelor party back in early June.
Opened up. That was that was beginning of June. It opened in late May, I want to say, like the last week of May.
I think it was Memorial Day weekend. So it opened up then, and people are freaking out that it's not already streaming because it's been typically 45 to 90 days is what the window has been lately, ever since COVID hit. And this is going on, 4 or 5 months at this point, and it looks like it may not even stream in November when the DVD comes out. They may push it back to December. So,
I mean, it's doing so well in theaters. It's like,
and that's the thing. It's doing so well in theaters, and that's why they keep pushing it off. Because why not?
My brother has literally
on the sales.
Yeah, my brother Daniel has literally seen it either 4 or 5 times in the theater. I've only seen it twice. Okay, I've seen it twice in the theaters.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah,
I'm one of these people looking for the streaming.
Right. Yeah, I will say definitely worth the big screen. It's one of those movies. It's just it was fantastic in the theater. Oh man, I'm so glad it didn't go direct to streaming because it would have. And I read that Tom Cruise, because he's such a big star and a big producer on the movie, he rejected several studio offers for them to put it on their streaming services. He got several offers. They wanted to put it on their streaming services, and he said no to every single one because he pushed so hard. He wanted to be in the theater.
Yeah, because this movie was supposed to come out a couple of years ago too. I think that movie was supposed to come out in 2020, and then it got pushed back because of the pandemic. Right.
Yeah, it was filmed, I will say, either I think it was filmed in 2019, honestly. So it was filmed a couple years ago, and it's just now getting out there. But I'm definitely glad. I think they made the right decision not releasing it, in 2020, because Nolan did that with Tenet, and that did not turn out very well. This movie definitely benefited from waiting, and I think right now it's around 1.4 billion, which is really, really good for the pandemic era.
I read 1.5 billion today. Actually,
okay.
the other article we're going to discuss, it says 1.5.
Gotcha. That tops Spider-Man: No Way Home, right? I feel like Spider-Man only made a little bit past $1 billion.
Yeah, I think Top Gun is now number 3.
Okay. Wait, number 3
of all time. I think it beat Avatar. Didn't it beat Avatar?
No way. Avatar's number 1.
Avatar got taken down. Avatar's not number 1.
Okay, you mean domestically, not like worldwide. Worldwide, Avatar has like 2.7 billion.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I know domestically it took down Titanic for sure. But speaking of which, Avatar is getting re-released again in theaters this weekend. Today. So today, just to assure it's get people hyped up for Avatar 2, which actually we're going to discuss here in a second.
Yeah, but also let's hold on to that conversation and keep talking about the Black Panther here.
Yeah,
because so what do you think this does to the streaming versus film? Like, because now they're fighting against each other rather than working together to make a seamless process. I really feel like this law just makes no sense at all.
No, it's way too long. Even someone like me, who is such a huge fan of believing in the theatrical window and the theatrical experience, not going straight to streaming or having only a 30 or 90 day window, 17 months that's just too long. That's just insane to me.
Yeah, I guess apparently they put stuff on TV too, so that's
okay. So that's definitely a factor in it.
So yeah, because they have to have time to. So it's theater there, and then time for TV, and then time for streaming. So yeah, you got a lot of things competing against each other there. Whereas here, TV usually comes like years after video and streaming.
Yeah.
Unless you count
Disney's definitely one who, they started out with, I forget, was it Black Widow was the first one they put? No, I guess it was Milan. They put direct to streaming same day as theaters, and that was a huge deal when that happened. But I know Pixar, it says in the article itself, Pixar is kind of ticked off at Disney as well right now, because they're not giving that. They released, I forget what the latest Pixar movie was. Honestly, recently I've been losing track of Pixar movies because they've been, in my opinion, a little subpar recently. But the last Pixar movie went straight to streaming, and Pixar was not happy about that.
It's been multiple Pixar movies actually. Pixar hasn't had. Onward was the last one that went into theaters.
Oh,
that
wow.
was at the very beginning of the pandemic.
March of 2020. That was the last movie I saw in theaters before the pandemic. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was that long.
One. So they had, so Pixar had Soul, Luca, and Turning Red all go straight to streaming. See, and then they had Lightyear, which did terrible in the theater.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see it. I heard it was bad.
They've been hurt by that. Lightyear was bad. I didn't like Lightyear. I didn't like it because it didn't make sense for what they claimed it was.
Yeah.
But moving on to that.
Right.
So Pixar hasn't had a decent theatrical release since 2020, and that movie, Onward, wasn't a decent theatrical release. The movies were great, though. Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, in my opinion, are all very strong Pixar films. Lightyear's a little on the weekend, but they did. They were great stories. They didn't get their due time in the theater because of the situation.
I just feel like when they released direct to streaming, like I just don't see much advertising for these movies that go straight to streaming. Like if a movie comes out in theaters, I feel like one way or another, I'm seeing a commercial or an ad for it, but like I saw next to zero advertising for Soul or for Luca or that third one you mentioned. I already forgot the name of it.
Yeah. Turning Red. But yeah, they don't get the advertisement because it's only Disney streaming service. They get advertised along with the streaming service. Right. So if you see a commercial for Disney Plus, then you'll see them in with other movies advertised for that, but you won't see them on their own.
Right.
But they are advertised heavily within, like whenever it hits, because we have Disney Plus. Whenever it hits, the kids are like, "Hey, what's that? Hey, what's that?" They want to see what the new stuff is. So it definitely, like, you see it pops up on the homepage showing you, hey, this is what's here. This is the new thing. Check it out. So we've seen them. I've seen them all over and over and over again.
Okay. I guess I don't spend that much time on Disney Plus these days.
Have a subscription. 3 kids.
That'll do it. Yeah.
That'll do it. Pretty much open it up and go, which Disney movie are you going to watch today?
Right.
So besides that, do you think this is going to really hurt Black Panther at all?
Honestly, not. I don't think a ton. I mean, France isn't, it's not China as far as box office goes, but obviously it's a big country, but they're not a huge market. I think Disney's going to be just fine if they skip France, honestly. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. I think it'll do enough domestically and in other markets that it'll be just fine.
And who do you think is the next Black Panther?
Oh man, I don't even know. But that's the other thing. I think people will just go to see this movie because with Chadwick Boseman's death, that sets out a whole people want to see who is the next Black Panther, how they're going to handle his death, and all of that. So just on that front alone, I think it's going to make a good bit of money, a lot of money.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely it's one of the few I've actually cared to see. Like, I didn't care to see Multiverse of Madness. I didn't care about Thor, Love and Thunder, even though, like, I love Thor Ragnarok. Love and Thunder just seemed like it was trying too hard to copy what Ragnarok did, so it didn't really intrigue me. Although I have watched, I'm trying to catch up on the Phase 4 now.
Okay.
and it's actually been better than I expected. Multiverse of Madness, I do not agree with you at all. We've had our exchange on that.
Yes, yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised with Eternals. I didn't think it was as terrible as everyone made it out to be.
All right.
I was emotionally invested in a couple of the characters, not all of them. The other thing that really hit me on that was the surprise at the end. Like I figured there was going to be a traitor, but it wasn't who I expected, and that, so yeah, I like being surprised in movies. It's hard to do that to me. So when you do it and pull it off, especially with a movie that's been out for a year,
right,
it's good.
You remember it.
I was like, okay. So to me, that was pretty solid. I haven't seen Black Widow yet. That's the last one I need to see.
Yeah, but you liked. We both agree we liked Shang-Chi. That's honestly, I think, the strongest that they've put out. Yeah,
Shang-Chi was very strong. I think that and Spider-Man are definitely the strongest ones they've put out. Shang-Chi might even be stronger than Spider-Man. The one thing I don't like is it messes up. She-Hulk uses part of Shang-Chi and completely messes up the timeline. And what they do with She-Hulk, it just doesn't make sense. Like, now that I've seen Shang-Chi, I hate She-Hulk even more.
Yeah.
But but I'm trying to just look at She-Hulk as like, it's just a comedy, so it's kind of like a throwaway.
Yeah.
If they do something serious in it, then it might matter, but it's Anyways, getting distracted. Yeah. Black Panther is one of the few I've actually been excited about. So
yeah, the teaser trailer was very good in my opinion. Like, that really got you hooked, got me amped. Good. It was really well edited. Yeah.
And the fact that I couldn't tell who was in the suit, like, to me, I thought it was going to be obvious who it was, and we really don't know. I think there's 4 very valid options for who could be the next Black Panther. And maybe it'll be none of them. Maybe, but we'll see.
Yep.
I just don't think it'll be Michael B. Jordan. I don't think he'll be back. Yeah. On to the next article. You want to do this one?
But basically, Avatar 2, the big question here is, will it be a box office flop, or will it be a box office hit? Or will it be something in between? I'm honestly going somewhere in between. I don't think it's going to be a flop, and the reason for that is, I don't doubt James Cameron. If there's something I hear to so far in the cinema world, is I do not doubt James Cameron, because he's been doubted twice in his career, with Titanic projected to be a flop and the first Avatar projected to be a major flop, and both of those have been the complete opposite 180s. And secondly, the fact that it's such a visual spectacle that's meant to be seen in theaters and people know it. I think whether or not they hate, the first Avatar story, you can talk all day about that, that aspect of it. I think they'll turn out just for the visual spectacle of the movie itself, and the fact that it's in 3D, even though people say 3D is dead. The fact that this one is built for 3D, and Cameron is a pioneer of 3D. And that's what made the first one such a success. I honestly think people are going to flock to this movie. I project it. I don't think it's going to be an all-time, it's not going to break the first Avatar's all-time worldwide record and be the highest grossing film history. But I do think it's going to easily cross 1 billion. Maybe like around 1.5, 1.7. I don't think it'll hit the 2 billion mark, but I do think it'll easily cross 1 billion. That's my thoughts.
Yeah,
what do you think?
I don't. It depends on what they consider a flop. Yeah, because I don't know how much money they've put into it. If they don't move on with the other films, would that be considered a flop?
I would say yes. The third one is honestly almost completely shot. So I think I read somewhere, even if this one does flop pretty majorly, they will at least release the third one, because it's so far into post-production already, whereas the other ones, like 4 and 5, they won't, but 3, at minimum 3, they will.
There's nothing about this movie that's drawing me towards it.
Yeah.
Just like the article says, this movie is forgettable. Like, Avatar was forgettable. There's nothing that stands out about that movie that makes you go, oh yeah, remember this line, remember this scene, remember this. All you have is the theatrical experience of it, which means it doesn't stick with people, and it came out in 2009. It was right before major social media meme culture, before the stuff that, we have now that get stuff really stuck in your head, like a movie comes out. And the fact that they can make a bunch of memes about it the week afterwards is what really gets me, people like going to see a movie or people learning more about a movie now. The other thing is, I feel like Avatar, a lot of its success is overblown. I feel like they had 3 to 6 months of not really being challenged by anything major. There were a couple movies. I mean, so the first Sherlock Holmes came out then, but that wasn't that big. It was a good movie, but it didn't have to do $1 billion back then to be big. Like it could make a couple $100 million, be fine. But other than that, it really wasn't challenged until Iron Man 2 came out in June of the following year. So there wasn't a whole lot in that time frame to compete against it. So you have this movie that everyone's talking about because it's a crazy experience. And then you go and see it and it's kind of like, hey, there's nothing really else playing. Let's go see it again. It was so crazy. It was so wild. I feel like that's really where a lot of its $2.8 billion success comes from. So that being said, it's a completely different game now.
Yeah.
It's a completely different culture. If he does something new in this film that makes people talk about it again, then yeah, I think they can get the repeat butts in the seat to make their money. But other than that, if he doesn't have anything new,
is underwater performance capture that's never been done before? Is that new enough for people? You think that is the primary new thing he did technology-wise?
That's the thing is, I don't know if that's. I mean, performance capture has been done to death at this point. Everybody does it for almost every movie now. The fact that it's underwater. I mean, we have so much underwater stuff coming out at this point that who cares? You have Aquaman, you have Little Mermaid, you have other movies where they've done the underwater thing or are doing the underwater thing. I don't want to doubt James Cameron because, like you said, he's been doubted before. Everyone thought Titanic and Avatar would flop, and they clearly didn't. They became each the highest grossing movie of all time. In their respective times. But I think that at this point, he may be one of these people like Scorsese who's getting a little older and might be out of touch with what's happening in theaters right now. I feel like if it came out 6 years ago, maybe, but yeah, it's so long since the last movie came out. I was excited for an Avatar 2 back in 2010, 2011. I was still excited back in 2012. But after that, like, life moves on. Literally, since that movie came out, I have graduated 2 separate schools. I have gotten married, been married for 11 years, and had 3 kids. One of which is 8 years old now. So you're talking like this is a world apart. I remember seeing that movie in my hometown when I went home to visit my friends after living away for 2 years. Like that movie is so far removed from my life as a geek person who is getting inundated with so many nerdy things, whether it's TV or movies or whatever, like, so for me, I don't know if Avatar is even on my list of like movies I'm excited to see. Yeah.
And I kind of, my reasoning also is like the fact that kind of fall in the vein of Top Gun Maverick, and people, I don't know many people that were like, when when it was announced Top Gun Maverick, they're like, yeah. But when they started seeing, the commercial, the trailers for this, and knowing the effects that were in the movie, I feel like they were driven more by the effects and by the story itself, and I feel like that's right in the vein for this Avatar. They're going to be driven by the effects. And if they like it enough, the first Avatar again also did so well because people were seeing it 3 or 4 times in theaters. So if this can actually get repeat viewings, that'll be a major factor as well, especially when you're paying IMAX 3D is like almost $20 a ticket. That was a big factor back in 2009. I just don't know. My thing is, I don't know if people are going to be willing to spend $60 to see this 3 times in IMAX 3D. They have to really, really like it. I mean, to do that again. So,
yeah.
But we'll see.
$60. Yeah.
And the budget, I just looked up, the budget was $250 million. So it has to make, general rule is you double the budget. So at least 500 to break even, which I think is very doable. So we'll see. But
it's doable, but we'll see how clogged the market is at that point.
Yeah,
because I'm trying to think of
other
stuff coming out of
right. I was trying to think of other things. There's no Star Wars to worry about in December, unlike the past, several years. So that's a big boost for Avatar. He waited until the Star Wars movies were out of the way.
Yeah.
So
what else is
I don't think there's I'm just trying to think. I don't think there's a lot of competition, honestly, in that December time slot.
No, that might actually help it.
Yeah.
Was that you or me digging?
Oh, sorry, that was my mom.
Hi, Mom.
Well,
what else do we have? Yeah, we don't have. Disney has a movie coming out a couple weeks before it. Avatar: The Way of Water. Nothing else. You have the second Puss in Boots movie.
Yeah.
Babylon,
then again,
maybe.
It's set up again since it premieres in December. Those January movies are generally pretty terrible. It should honestly feast on those opening weekends in January and February.
I feel like those weeks are becoming less and less terrible though every year.
Yeah,
I do. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like it's becoming more common to see decent movies coming out year round now. I mean, I agree with you. I've talked about this before, that January was usually a time when things
dumping ground.
It's throwaway. Yeah, it's the dumping ground for throwaway films that they don't think will do that well. But I feel like now, especially with streaming and things like that, there's more and more stuff. There's another Magic Mike's coming out. I did not know that.
Oh, geez, I did not even know that.
That's coming out in February. I'm looking up what else is coming out. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is coming out, and Shazam, John Wick Chapter 4. I think it will get a stopper earlier than it did before.
Okay.
Yeah. I could be wrong. I can always be wrong. Fast X comes out in May. So, I mean,
that's been delayed forever.
Creed 3.
Okay.
Comes out in March. So you're right. There's not a
Fast
whole
10
lot
should do
on
pretty
there.
well.
But
fast movies always make a buttload of money, no matter how terrible they may be.
I didn't see the 9 yet. I think I started it, and then life had to stop. But anyways, all right, let's move on to the next subject.
Yeah.
Which
one
do we want to do? Our main one. All right, Dune.
Dune. Oh man,
Dune was a movie. We saw this together.
We did.
Was that in?
I think it was in IMAX, wasn't it? At Penn Cinema.
Yes. Yep. When was that? November?
So it came out October 22. I want to say we saw it.
We saw it opening weekend. Night.
Yeah.
We saw it the opening night that Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I drove out there.
I think it was
a Thursday night. I slept at your place and then went to work on 3 hours of sleep.
That's right. I remember that now. Yep. So just a tiny bit of background, written by John Spates, Denis Villeneuve, and Eric Roth, and based on a novel, of course, by Frank Herbert, and directed by Denis Villeneuve. People recognize his work like Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Prisoner, Sicario. and we should preface this as people found out. This is a part one, just a part one movie of part two.
Mm-hmm.
It grossed $401.8 million on a $165 million budget. So it didn't actually, that honestly just barely beats breaking even, honestly.
Wait, how much did you say?
It grossed $401.8 million on a $165 million budget.
Is that domestic or is that worldwide?
That's worldwide.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's not a lot of money. That's not a lot. I mean, that's less than $500 million.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with part two wasn't even going to be greenlit until they saw how this did box office wise for part one, and they were pleased enough with that to greenlight part two, which is good because it would have been awkward to just have a part one and that's it, you know. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, including Best Picture. It won 6, mainly for the technical categories like Best Visual Effects, Cinematography, Production Design, and Best Score for Hans Zimmer, all of which I think were deserved.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also have a written review of this, which any listeners that are interested, you can go to anthony-watkins.com/Dune. I wrote a written review for this basically a couple days after I saw it that weekend. My initial consensus from the movie was the film's visual splendor, coupled with a strong cast and performances, incredible production design, an immersive world, and an intriguing story dealing with destiny, purpose, and political wars, all leads to yet another great film from Villeneuve. But I remember at the end of this movie, I looked over at you and I'm pretty sure you gave me a thumbs down. The first reaction was a thumbs down to this movie. Would you mind explaining yourself there?
Well, I haven't been a Dune fan for long. My brother-in-law has been trying to get me to read the book for years. I've seen the 1984, I want to say, movie.
Okay. David Lynch.
Saw that movie. I've seen the Sci-Fi Channel movie of the same title. It's one of these films and books that's so iconic amongst sci-fi that, you know, the desert planet becoming a common thing. You know, you see it in Star Wars, you see it in Stargate. You know, it's often repeated. A lot of the themes and things that happen in this, even the sandworm part is repeated in Star Wars. But it just didn't have the stuff that I wanted in the movie. And I don't think I'll ever be satisfied with a Dune movie because there's so much complexity in the story and so much stuff that goes on that I think it would be better off if someone Games of Throned it, where they made it a TV show that lasted multiple seasons, because honestly, the first book takes place over like 4 years of time. So you could very easily not stretch it, but very easily have the first book be more than one season of a TV show. Very easily. Not to mention that there's at least 2 more books afterwards that you could go directly into. I don't think it'd be smart to try and do all of the books, because book 4, which I've been struggling with, takes place like 3,000 years later. And yes, some of the characters are still alive, but most of them aren't anymore. And it becomes a very different thing at that point, in my opinion. So yeah, for me, it was the fact that it didn't have any of the major scenes that I wanted in it. There's this dinner scene that I wanted in it.
No dinner scene.
They didn't have, and you know what? I watched it again in preparation for the show, and I appreciate it for what it is, but I feel like it would have done better if they would have had, like, they weren't suspecting a traitor at all in the movie. Like, if they had had that as a theme where you're sitting there going, wait, who's the traitor? Who's the traitor? Trying to figure out which of these characters is the traitor, that could have been something, you know? Because in the book, you're suspecting, well, no, you're not really suspecting. You're told right away who the traitor is. But all the characters are suspecting each other and treating each other as if they don't trust them, you know? Like, Jessica, the mother and wife, concubine, is really come hard against. People are really coming against her as if she is definitely the traitor. And there's other things revealed about her that make you go, wait, maybe she would be the traitor. When, oh my God, Gurney attacks Paul at the very beginning of the movie, Paul's like, wait, is Gurney the traitor? That's literally a thought that he has when Gurney comes so hard against him and attacks him because of him being lazy and letting down his guard. The fact that Paul had that thought in the book, and we just have no feeling that this is going to happen, So when someone finally does betray him, it just doesn't hit. It didn't have that impact. I feel like if I wasn't as informed on the book, I feel like I'd be lost in this movie as to what was actually going on, which, we did have some people who hadn't read the book there. And
they still liked it.
They still liked it, yeah. So, for me, it's a lot of the fact of the stuff that's missing and also the way they interpret certain elements. They did this in the 84 movie, too, where, what was it? The Harkonnen Baron has suspenders and there are these things that help him move, but instead they make him fly in the movies. They don't make him fly in the books. They actually make him look goofy and kind of weak because he kind of like hops along because he's so fat that he can't support his own weight. And that's why he has these suspenders on that make him like a little bouncy and stuff in the way that he walks, because there are these technology that's pushing him off the ground. He's like moonwalking and he looks ridiculous as a person, but they kind of make it more of a flying, intimidating thing. The casting was spot on for this. The way they represented Paul's prescience, which is his ability to see into the future, was perfect because they had these visions in the movie where they don't come true, Like they have a vision of Chaney stabbing him and killing him pretty early on. They have a vision of Jameis being like his best friend and helping him and teaching him the ways of the desert and stuff like that, So they show you that it's none of this stuff is guaranteed. Like he sees all these different paths that could happen in the future, but they're not necessarily reliable, so I thought that representation of his visions were good. Duncan, Idaho, I think Jason Momoa knocked that role out of the park. I thought he was a perfect actor for that. I know some people hated the casting, but I thought it was spot on. I also liked the way they represented him in the fight. Spoiler alert, as always, spoiler zone.
Right.
In the fight where he does die, I thought that was perfect because he kept getting back up. You kept thinking he was dead and done, and he kept getting back up. And major spoiler alert for the books and way deeper than the movies are ever going to go. Because he kept fighting like that, the Sardaukar actually take his body and take him to some other people who revive him and bring him back. So because they respected the way he fought. So it ends up being a very interesting thing for later stories. But yeah, so I love the way they did that with him. What else? I just felt like when they were betrayed, it didn't hit. You had no idea what was going on. We were more like a character in the movie than someone watching the movie. We weren't like, I don't know. I just felt like they could have done more with the story. But like I said, I don't think I'll be satisfied.
Yeah, and there were some concepts like the whole Bene Gesserit and their superhuman powers and the whole breeding program. Like that's explained pretty well in the book, but in the movie, you don't really get anything as far as how does this work? How do they have powers?
The thing. Like
it's like
they didn't do it. They didn't write. They like the powers part, maybe not, but the way they talked with surety about. They didn't have the line of like nothing for the father. That's what the one Bene Gesserit says in the book when she shows up. She's like, nothing for the father, but I may be able to save the son. And it's like, wait, and Paul catches on. He's like, wait, what do you mean? Because they're talking about that traitor thing. And they literally say, oh no, the father's going to die. There's nothing we can do for him. And Jessica just goes along. No, there's nothing we can do, but relax. You're saved, Paul. And it's like there's just so much political intrigue and stuff that's going on with behind the scenes and the suspecting of people and what people know and don't know and how they're trying to figure things out, which I think would go great in a TV show.
Right. Especially
done in the style of Game of Thrones. Exactly.
Because that's exactly what Game of Thrones had in its early seasons, was so much political. You don't know who to trust, betrayal, left and right, and fighting, quarreling houses. That's right up HBO's alley.
And I just think they could do it well. There's so much material there too, because there's the history beforehand now that is all written out. They have books that focus just on Leto Atreides and his time on Caladan. So there's so much material to work with that the fact that they haven't made the TV show is just almost criminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, he did a well enough job that they're greenlighting a second movie.
Yeah.
I heard that he actually has plans for 3, which means he wants to adapt Dune Messiah as a third movie, from what I understand. Which is the second book. Which that would be good because it kind of completes Paul's story there. Okay. So it'd be interesting.
I haven't read the second book. I know it's a smaller book, so at some point I probably will try to read that, especially if it's being made into a movie, just so I can get into that. But yeah,
I mean, I've gone through the book. I've gone through the first book 3 times in the past year because of seeing the movie and then being like, wait, I'm forgetting what happened here. Let me go back and read it again, And then I've gone through Dune Messiah twice this past year just because trying to parse out what they're building in this movie. And I'm hoping that they do get to do all 3. It'd be interesting to see.
Yes.
But like I said, I'm probably not going to be satisfied until I get a TV show, multiple seasons dealing with this.
That can really flesh
I do like
it
the
out.
Casting, though. The casting was great. I thought it was fantastic. All the actors played their roles perfectly. There wasn't any point where I was like, I wish I would have gotten to see more. I wish I would have gotten to see just how demented some of them really are. There are some, like the casting in the next movie, I'm scared of because they have Christopher Walken is cast for the next movie as the Emperor. And I'm just looking at that being like, first of all, the Emperor is supposed to be this like 30, 40-year-old looking redheaded dude. And they got Christopher Walken playing that character.
Oh, de-aging, there's no limits.
There's the de-aging thing, but there's also the fact that I've never seen Christopher Walken play anybody other than Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
He doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't act. He plays a role, and you bring him in to play that role. It's a great role. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. There's lots of actors who do that. I think Ryan Reynolds is another one who always plays pretty much the exact same character, but you bring him in because you want Ryan Reynolds,
Right.
Similar to, Will Smith has branched out, so he's not exactly like that, but he was for a while there. The Rock is another one who pretty much plays different versions of the same guy. Big departures for him were movies like The Tooth Fairy and stuff like that. Very early on. When you were like, oh, his career's going down, and then he goes in Fast 5 and okay, we'll bring it back.
Yeah. And this movie, like we said, the technical elements, there's an immense sense of scale, the production design is incredible. The sandworms, especially on the big screen, how large and gravity of them is just, you feel the weight of them almost in the theater. It's like they really, cinematography wise, they really did a good job capturing this. You feel like you're on the planet Arrakis, that you can feel the desert heat, and the sand. It's just, they really did well in those areas. Story wise, there are definitely some things. That's also what I had. My complaint was, having read the book, the lack of the political intrigue just isn't as strong here as what it is in the book. But yeah, still for me,
yeah,
still
and
really
it's similar to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, that was all I was going to say there.
Well, I was thinking it's similar to like Lord of the Rings, where like Lord of the Rings, when you read those books, the books give you way more hope than the movies ever do. The movies make you think like everything is just terrible and they can't do anything, whereas in the books, Legolas is killing Nazgul in the first book. So there's that. Whereas, so it's similar to like Dune, where you didn't get that by not getting that dinner scene. You don't know what else is going on the planet. You don't know that there's smugglers who steal things away from the planet, who are sneaking spice off in different ways, and that they're trying to make deals with these smugglers to get themselves out of there. You don't know that there's people who are shipping water in, and that they're trying to make connections with them too. Like there's all these different factions working together and vying for power, and it just like it was possible for certain things to go a certain way. But this movie just made it seem like there was just nothing. Liet Kynes is just sitting there being like, nothing I can do, nothing I can do, nothing I can do. She doesn't care.
Yeah. Which also, fun fact, anyone who's read the book, they switched her from a male in the book to a female in the movie. But I think we discussed this. I don't really have, wasn't really a problem for me. I don't know of anyone that had really had a problem with that.
I thought they were trying to combine two characters and just make it easier on themselves, which I would have understood. But the fact that Kynes still met the same fate that Kynes met in the book, that it's different, but similar enough. So it's like, I don't know what they're trying to do there or why, but it didn't matter. The actress was great. I mean, she's still the mother of probably, I'm assuming, the mother Cheney. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what goes on. I'm curious to see if Timothée Chalamet will bulk up at all.
Yeah, he's really, that's on the rewatch. I was like, man, he is thinner than I remember him. And watching this movie the first time,
it's perfect for the kid, because the kid size, he's supposed to be small. He's kind of cut out. Did we lose Anthony?
I'm still here. Do you hear me?
Okay, cool. Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah.
What were you saying about Timothée Chalamet?
I was just saying, he looked when I was rewatching this 2 nights ago, it's like he looks even skinnier in this viewing than what he looked like when I saw this movie opening night. He is very gaunt looking almost in certain scenes. Like he's just
they even make fun of him for being so small. They're like, "Oh, it looks like you got a muscle." Really? No.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I mean, they did do that part well too, because that actually doesn't come out in the book. Duncan Idaho, like I told you, as a character gets revived.
Right.
You see his love for the Atreides family in the books because of that aspect, but you don't see it so much in the book. So they got to portray that in the movies, like how much he actually loves this family and is how close he is with Paul and how meaningful his relationship. So they built on that really well, setting up for what happens later, even though we don't know if they're going to get a chance to show that type of stuff happening later. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, because that's all Dune Messiah and beyond. It's interesting what they do and how the technology works. Oh, that's the one big gripe that I did have with this movie when I was on the rewatch. The one big gripe I had was Yui's Asian accent.
Okay. All right.
Because he's got this really deep, accent, and we're 20,000 years removed from our timeline. It's literally 20,000 years in the future in this story, and he's still talking like he's just got off the boat from China. And I was just like, why did they make that choice?
I didn't think about that.
Days and times, I just don't get it, It's just kind of funny to me that they did that. And I didn't think anything of it when I first saw the movie, but watching this time, I was like, what just happened here?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
But yeah, so
well,
I think Dune is worth seeing. That's Dune.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I gave it an A in my original written review, like a 94%, so like a nice solid A. And then for our like recommended rating system that we came up with for this season, I would put it into the rewatchable category, so like just below a must see. Rewatchable meaning that given a high praise, we purposely watch it again. I think it's a very rewatchable movie, but I wouldn't quite put it into you absolutely need to see this movie. I don't think it's quite there.
Yeah, I would agree with the same. I would go rewatchable. Okay, so the scale we came up with was must see, rewatchable. What was it again? I don't have it in front of me. Watchable.
Watchable was just below that. Avoid this movie.
Avoid this movie.
Which we hope you don't have to use, but you never know. They are actually, out there.
Yeah, like I don't really. Maybe for cat, I don't know. I haven't seen it. I've avoided it. But yeah, so that's the rating system we have is because we're trying to branch out and make our own thing. So we have must see, rewatchable, watchable, and avoid. So that's like our 4 levels, and then we're also going to give it a points score just to understand, so that people can know where we're coming at on this thing, because we're doing a lot of new stuff here with Buddy Movies. We are actually launching a website as well, where we're going to post our reviews, and we're going to have our shows there as well. You'll be able to see what movies we're looking forward to there. We're going to have some other guys coming in to write for us, and so we're trying to be more with the show. So I would also give Dune a rewatchable, because it is a movie that's enjoyable and worth multiple viewings to fully get the depth of what they're doing with the characters and stuff. I don't think I would give it 94 or an A. I'd probably be more of a B+ area, just because of the things that I said before. So I'd probably give it more like an 89 score for myself.
Yeah.
But still definitely a quality movie. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
To quote Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to another thing that I have so much to say about.
Yeah. Our final segment of this episode, we're going into The Lord of the Rings of Power, Amazon's billion-dollar TV series that premiered a couple weeks ago.
$1 billion on this?
Five seasons worth. They are $1 billion.
Okay. 5 seasons worth. I can see it being $1 billion. That makes
spread out over
sense.
5. Oh yeah.
I thought they were spending $1 billion on one season. I was like, how?
No. Yeah, with this being $1 billion, though, it holds the Guinness record of the world's the most expensive TV series ever created.
For now.
Well, yeah, it'll be topped, I'm sure, at some point. But for now, it's the most expensive. Basically, to give just a tiny bit of background, it covers the Second Age of Middle Earth, basically the forging of the Rings of Power, hence the name. Also, the rise of Sauron. It has Jan Galadriel as right now she's like the main protagonist, I would say, and then there's the young Elrond as well present. There's 5 episodes out now. You and I have both watched the first 4. Yes. We were going to originally review this episode by episode, but we just, with a lot of other things going on, we didn't, get to make that original premiere time to do that. But we at least have the 4 episodes. We can, kind of just talk about the series in general up until this point, and then next week start doing episode by episode. But
absolutely,
So I'll just turn it over to you for right now. What do you think of the series thus far?
Right now, I have been pleasantly surprised by the series. I expected to go in and hate it. Honestly, I expected to hate watch the show. When you were picking this as the show we're going to watch, I was actually dreading it, because I didn't want to. I was going to watch it, but I didn't want to watch it and then have to talk about it, because I don't like hate reviewing. Honestly, I don't like talking about things that I dislike. And I thought that was going to be the case here. I think it's a solid outing. I know people are comparing it to House of Dragon right now and saying that it's not getting as many viewers. I don't think Amazon has as many viewers as HBO, period, though. I could be wrong on that, but I just don't think it would get as many viewers, period. But they are probably drawing more people in. They are cashing in a little bit on the Lord of the Rings thing, but I still think it's a solid story. The first couple episodes they've had surprises.
Yeah,
they haven't tried to cram too much in here. They are kind of they do have a large cast of characters, a lot of different people, but they're not trying to cram every single one into every single episode. Galadriel, I think, is the only one who's been in every single episode so far. Elrond and the stuff that he's doing with the dwarves. I was a little disappointed with episode 4 because they kind of ended the mystery that they set up in episode 2 with the dwarves. Like, what are the dwarves doing? What's going on? They kind of told us exactly what's happening with them. I was hoping to see more with that of like, ooh, what's happening here? Maybe something, but we know what's going on. They're digging for mithril. They found this new metal. I like it. I wish they would have dragged it out a little more. But there's a lot of elements that I'm curious what's happening with the dwarves, or not the dwarves, the orcs who are building in the Southlands. I want to see more of what's happening there. I want to know how they suddenly have this large army there that the elves didn't see coming from underneath them. They're having the elves, like, I'm caring about these characters. When someone dies, it matters. It's not just like a show that kills off anyone and you don't care. That's how I feel about it, at least. I think they're playing it really well. There's been a lot of, we'll talk about the controversy later. What do you think about the show? How do you feel?
I like you. I was surprised. I went into this. Obviously, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. It's one of my favorite. The original trilogy. It's one of my favorite trilogies of all time. And every episode thus far has left me intrigued and wanting to see more. I really, honestly, have not been bored by any episode. The pacing is a little slow. I will agree with some people on that, but I honestly don't mind the slower pacing. I think it's taking its time, and I'm okay with that. Even with that, each episode there is things progressing. Like, no one is staying just stagnant, not doing anything. Like, things are happening, and I like the direction it's going, and the whole there's like this how do I describe it? There's this with with Sauron kind of lurking in the shadows type of thing. I love that whole element. That's my favorite aspect of it so far. That there's just darkness that's lurking, and at some point it's going to surface, and you're just kind of waiting for it to happen. I like Galadriel. I like her character. I know some people have some problems with her character. I like her character thus far.
I think she became a lot more likable once she gets to Numenor. But I think that is what's great about the character is the fact that you don't have to like her. She's being arrogant. She's being pig-headed, and she grew. And this is one of the major things that has to happen in most stories is the fact that she is a deeply flawed character when it starts, which I know some people who love Galadriel will hate that. Because she's like this perfect elf lady, but this is not her yet. She's not that yet. This is
She is
thousands of years before. So she's not that yet, but she's going to get there, and she's She's growing as a character. She's learning, or at least seems like she's learning how to deal with different people and not just be so pig-headed about her mission. Oh, wow. Right. She took some advice from a human and got what she wanted. By the end of episode 4, she's moving towards her goal again, which she's been kicking against the goads for the past 4 episodes, So yeah, I think it's great the way they're doing the characterization. Now, I understand as far as the lore goes, it is breaking lore in certain spots.
And I know we can just get into the controversy right now. I know I have had literally some friends say like basically saying this steps on Tolkien's grave. This is like, yeah, they're just honestly like borderline furious over this series because of how un-Tolkien it is, and it's nothing like Lord of the Rings. It's just like an imitation of Lord of the Rings type of deal. And there's some wokeness that they say is in it that honestly I have not detected, and I'm someone who I detect wokeness pretty easily, and I have a big problem with that. But I honestly have not had a problem with this thus far.
Yeah, I haven't had a problem with any of the. Like, okay, so how would you define wokeness?
Well, as far as in terms of this, saying some people have problems with Galadriel's character, saying she's putting down men in some of these episodes, and she's too, quote, strong as a female character. I don't have problems with strong female characters as long as it's done in the right way. We've discussed this in some other episodes in the past. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I honestly have not, unless I'm just not watching very closely, but I have not detected that side of her. And
that's my thing, is she's failing. She's getting put in her place by people. You know what I mean? They literally tried to kick her out of Middle Earth at the beginning of this series.
Right.
She's getting stuck in the middle of nowhere. She's getting thrown into prison because of the things that she's doing. She's not winning. She's having actual struggles. She's a character who has to change and grow. So I think saying that doesn't make sense at all. I know some people have complained about the people of color in these things.
Yes, and the multiracial casting.
I can't care about that. Like, I just can't. If they did it, like, if they did it in a way where they were like, oh, look, well, we're the black hobbits, blah, 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 that would be like weird. It would be weird. Right. And if they made a point of it in the story, then that would be weird. It would stand out. And it would be like, oh, wow, you really are kind of just rubbing in people's faces. It's weird.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
Yeah. They're not pointing it out.
No, what they did is they have some hobbits which they're called Harfoots now because they haven't all grouped together and settled down in the Shire, which is where hobbits come from, is the settling down of these people. The Harfoots, and there's two other groups, can't remember what they're all called right now, but I literally started reading Lord of the Rings recently again, and I was floored where in the first chapter, the prologue, where it talks about concerning hobbits, they literally mentioned the Harfoots and two other groups, and they say, and I put this on my Facebook, they say the Harfoots were darker of skin.
Yes, I saw your post.
It literally says that. It literally says that in the book. The Harfoots were darker of skin, like the dwarves that they chased after. And I was like, what? Wait, dwarves were darker of skin? Yeah. So then you have a black dwarf woman in this movie, and people are like having an issue with that, which, first of all, I think she's acting exactly as a dwarf woman would have to act because of how pig-headed all dwarf men that we've seen in all of Tolkien's stuff so far are. They're all kind of like, they would need a woman to kind of wrestle the household, and when they're around, push them around, because that's what big, burly, nasty, working men like dwarves are would need at home. I've worked in trucking before, and the women there are different than the women who marry people who work in offices. They just are. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a bunch of miners who are, and that's like tough women. That's what that woman is. The second thing they have a complaint about with her is that she doesn't have a beard.
I was going to say, the beardless female dwarves.
Now, here's my thing about bearded dwarf women. The only reference I see to it is in the movie, The Two Towers, where what's his name makes a joke about it. Aragorn makes a joke where Gimli's explaining dwarves to Eowyn, and he says, "Oh, there's been rumors that have come that there are no dwarf women, but that's just because when people meet dwarves, they don't even realize they're dealing with women." Yeah. And then Aragorn looks at her and goes, "It's the beards." It's a joke. he wasn't literally going, dwarf women have beards. He was making a joke. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know why people.
For some reason, I thought it was referenced in The Hobbit that they had beards, though. Is that not? I mean, it's been a while since I read The Hobbit, but I thought he referenced that they did have beards in The Hobbit, and I could be wrong.
You know what? It has been a while since I read The Hobbit. Maybe it is in there. Maybe it's a common thing. Maybe they're a diverse group of people, and some of them have beards and some of them don't.
Yeah, that's possible. It's possible.
What? Yeah. So I'm over the whole. I'm over the whole race thing in fantasy. I don't care that these characters are there. They're not bad characters. If they were bad characters and we're supposed to not object to them because of their race, then that's a problem. And that is what happens in some stories and in some movies, like Ghostbusters 2016 comes to mind, where they were above criticism because they were women. You can't criticize a bad movie because they've changed something. So instantly you're sexist if you have anything bad to say about that movie. And I just feel like, that does come into play sometimes, but I don't feel like that's the case here. I feel like this is a solid show. It could go south. It could go completely terrible in the last 4 episodes.
Again, we're only 4 episodes in of this 5 season. This 5 season.
Of this 5 season, exactly 5 season series. So let's. It's met my test because I have like a 3 season rule for things. What I started doing is I'll watch the pilot of any show, and if I like it, I'll give it 3 episodes. And if those 3 episodes don't impress me, I'll move on.
Yeah,
She-Hulk did not pass that 3 episode thing for me, but I'm watching it because my kids want to.
Yeah.
So, my son actually asked me tonight if he could watch this She-Hulk show. So I'm probably going to end up watching it with him. Yeah. And I'll enjoy it because he's going to laugh and think some of stuff's funny, and we'll have fun with it. But I think that but this passed all those tests. This is honestly a fun show.
It kind of annoyed me whenever I just saw so many negative posts about this show when they literally saw just the first episode. I'm like, you're judging an entire series on 1 episode. Like, I mean, it's kind of hard to compare this to a show like The Office, but I mean, we've talked about how The Office started out not so great, and it turned out to be one of the best TV shows of all time. I mean, I just think you need to give it a chance more than just 1 episode for judge an entire series. But
what was it? Yeah, The Office had a terrible first season. But the mystery guy who we don't know, like the guy who fell from the star guy.
Yes.
I forget. The Stranger. That's what they're calling him. The Stranger.
Right, he's called Stranger.
Who do you think it is?
I don't know at this point. I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Because the thing is, Gandalf doesn't appear until the Third Age.
Right. So it's not Gandalf.
It's supposed to not be him. I think it could be him. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if they made it him, just because of, they're willing to break canon. They really are. Mm-hmm. They're willing to change things. So they could do that.
Out of the realm of possibility.
The other thing is, the reason they appeared was literally to deal with the Sauron problem. Because what happened was, from my understanding, is you had the war where Isildur, cuts the ring from Sauron's hand, and they go up, and Elrond takes them, and they're supposed to throw it into Mount Doom, and they don't.
Right.
And then that's when the Mithrandir, that's what's his name?
That's Gandalf's. Yeah.
When Gandalf and his other guys showed up, the wizards. Yeah. Because they showed up to basically deal with the fact that the ring is still around, Sauron's still around, even though they had this big fight to get rid of him. Mm-hmm. So Gandalf showed up a little early and was present for it. Who cares? The other thing is, there is stuff in the lore, from what I understand, which I'm not a lore expert on this, but there is stuff from what I understand that says that he he may have visited Middle Earth earlier than that, because we know he's older than that. Gandalf's like 24,000 years old. He's older than all of them. You know, so maybe he did step into Middle Earth earlier than, you know, the 3,000, 6,000, whatever years of their history that we know of. So if it is him, I'm okay with it. If it's not, I kind of hope they go with the Sauron aspect of it, because that would be interesting to me.
Yeah.
Is if he's Sauron.
Because Sauron can shapeshift into literally anything like that. I mean, he's a vampire at one point in the Silmarillion. He's what's it called? A warg, I think, also at one point. Like, he could literally be anything he wants.
Yeah. So, and Sauron is literally the same species as Gandalf and them. He's one of their kind. So I think it would be very interesting if it is Sauron. That to me would make a good show. The other thing that I think is going to make this a good show is we have Isildur. So we know we're close to the fight for the One Ring. We're within 200 years of it, at least, you know, because Isildur died when he was 200 something. So, like, watching that character build a friendship with Elrond, and then I'm assuming this series is going to end when he decides to keep the ring. Mm-hmm. That's my assumption right now.
Yeah.
So they build up to this whole battle. I mean, just the build up to these characters, and one of them going evil, one of them deciding to keep the One Ring.
Right.
Like, that's going to be epic to watch.
Yeah.
This is going to be exciting. We know who these characters are. We know where they're supposed to end. How do they get there? You know, like, let's see this ride.
Yeah. So it'll be a journey. And just going on to the technical aspects a little bit, like this it's stunning, visually stunning. I mean, it was shot, you know, obviously in New Zealand, where the original trilogy and The Hobbit were shot. You get these great landscape shots, a lot of practical effects, especially like makeup work on the orc side that are very reminiscent of the original trilogy. There's not a lot of CGI like there was in The Hobbit. So that was honestly one of my favorite aspects. It's this return to a more grounded Middle Earth as opposed to a lot of aspects of the Hobbit trilogy.
In the fourth episode, they had this. What's the kid's name? He's trying to.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
What's her name's son? Yeah, he's trying to escape the orcs. You know, he's in town. The place is crawling with orcs, and they had this long single shot of him like sneaking around the town. It's a single shot. It goes on for like 5-10 minutes. It's probably like 3 minutes realistically.
Yeah,
but the fact that they have him moving around the town, and the fact that you're going with him in this camera, it was an amazing shot. I really enjoyed that part of it. It was good. So they're doing cool stuff, and it looks great. Like, and to do a shot like that, you have to have an immersive world. Oh, yeah. You know, because having made a couple films myself, knowing what's behind the camera and what's in front of the camera is sometimes hilarious.
Yes.
How different the worlds are between what's on the screen, and, you know, because all you have to do is get it in the frame.
Right.
And how much you can cut off with that camera and show only a certain thing.
Literally anything can be outside the frame. I mean,
anything. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you have people trying to make the actors laugh outside the frame, and that's enjoyable.
Yeah.
So I just think it's an immersive world. It's so like, I want to know what happens to these characters. I've become invested in this show. So to me, it's not anywhere near as bad as what I've seen so many people say. Yeah. I'm really enjoying this show, and I want to see more of it. And I hope it gets all 5 seasons, as long as it keeps being good.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That is. Like I said, we'll talk more about the series. You know, with each episode, there's 4 episodes. There's 5 episodes out now. We've seen the first 4, so we'll go over probably episodes like 5 and 6. We'll be talking about this for
at least 4 more weeks.
Exactly. Yeah, because it ends after the first season's 8 episodes, I believe. So, So I mean, this is how our show is going to go from now on. Is we're going to talk about current events. We're going to talk about
a movie, and we're going to talk about a TV show. Yeah. So for those of you who are who've been with us for 3 years now, this is a change up, but this is how we're hoping to grow this show, how we're hoping to become a little bit more well-known, get this out there. So yeah, thanks for sticking with us. And I hope we didn't shock you too much with the changes we're making. The other thing is, and this is probably the biggest announcement, is we're not doing seasons anymore. We did season 1, season 2, season 3, and they were each, different lengths, 16, 20, 30 episodes, something like that.
Yeah.
But our hope now is that we're going to start doing a weekly show, and we're just going to keep going. And hopefully it gets popular, picked up. So the best thing you can do for us is to subscribe to the show, share the show, tell your friends about it, and like and subscribe. And keep telling us what we can do to improve. Get involved in the comments section. Talk to us on our website. Talk to us on our Facebook page. We're going to get a little bit more active on Twitter and a couple other social medias as we get involved with them. And we'll let you know about those. So do you have anything more to say, Anthony?
I don't think so. I don't think we're also just not going to, if you will, we're not going to spoil what our next episode is. So we obviously next week we'll have an episode on a movie. Obviously, we'll be talking about more on the Reins of Power. But as far as other topics, we're just going to let that be like an incentive to tune into what we may be reviewing. So, yeah. That's
a little bit more mystery, a little bit more fun.
Yeah. So
and that is what we're doing here at Buddy Movies. So if you want to check out our website, our website is buddymoviespodcast.com. You can check us out there, see what we got going on. We'll see how quickly we can get up the reviews and things. And thank you for joining us on this longer podcast. And as always, remember to stay cool.
We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching this episode of Buddy Movies. If you like what you saw, you can click up here for more episodes. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to get the access to all of our latest episodes. And if you really like what you see, you can support us on patreon.com/buddymovies. Thanks for watching, and stay cool.